I work with Banff Lake Louise Tourism as their in-market rep in Australia, hence there's no Canadian accent as I'm here. But I've worked with the area for over 10 years, so I'm quite familiar. A lot of you who sell it will probably know a lot of the basics. So I'm just here to refresh and answer any questions that you may have. There's updates on a recent visit that I had to the park where I saw some accommodation renovations and amazing shopping, restaurants, and just pointing out a few differences between Banff and Lake Louise as the townships themselves, and also getting there. So I'll start off with a snapshot on Banff National Park itself. It's located in the province of Alberta, which is next to British Columbia. That's the gateway province from Australia with all the airlines flying into Vancouver. And the airport gateways for Alberta are Calgary and Edmonton. Banff National Park is only 90 minutes from Calgary International Airport, so that's its closest airport gateway. The park is renowned worldwide as Canada's first national park. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site and home to the famed Canadian Rockies. The park is 12 months of the year operational, but we really like to focus on winter because that is a need period, and I'll be honest in saying that it's very difficult to get accommodation in summer, so we are trying to extend the winter months. And those that have visited in summer to see it in winter and the transformation, it's just magical. So also how to get there is very important for those who haven't sold the destination before. Air Canada flies daily from Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne to Vancouver, and from 3 June Air Canada will fly 3 times a week from Melbourne to Vancouver. Once you're in Vancouver, in British Columbia, there's on-the-hour connections available with Air Canada also across to Calgary and to Edmonton. As I mentioned, though, for Banff National Park, Calgary is the closer airport, and Air Canada has all the different classes available: economy, premier economy and business, and they access Air New Zealand Star Alliance lounges at Sydney Airport and Brisbane, Melbourne airports, and also in Vancouver and Calgary and Edmonton, they have their own airport lounges. Air New Zealand is another great way to get there because they have the second most direct flight. It's just via Auckland. Auckland flights directly into Vancouver. And once in Vancouver again, Air New Zealand co-chairs with Air Canada in the Star Alliance group for regular connections onto Calgary or Edmonton. And it's their airport lounges that are utilised in Sydney and also in Auckland, and then over in Canada they'll utilise the Air Canada lounge. So they're the 2 most direct ways to get there. A lot of Australians also, though, do like to travel via Los Angeles. So with so many airlines departing daily from Sydney to Los Angeles, it's another great way to access Calgary International Airport or Edmonton. Once in LA, WestJet, United or Delta or Air Canada have services up into Calgary. Again, if you did want to visit BC first, that you can go to Vancouver as well. Now, when you're travelling via the United States, you will require an ESTA visa. Even when you're travelling onto Canada and not getting out, you still require that visa. And actually within Canada too, the Canadian government now requires an ETA visa for all visitors travelling to Canada. And what's so important is that you do actually follow the correct link, the Canadian government link, because the visa is only $7 Canadian and lasts for 5 years. But there are a lot of links out there that sell the visas for up to $100, and that's just people making profits off your client. So take note of that link, and that is the correct one. So once you're in Calgary, Banff National Park is only 90 minutes drive from Calgary International Airport. It is the closest, as Edmonton is up to a 4-hour drive. For those who require transfers, there's regular on-the-hour transfers with Banff Airporter and also Brewster Airport Express. Or if your guests like to self-drive, and this is also possible in winter because all the cars have snow tyres and the roads are groomed regularly. There's no road blockages between Calgary and Banff due to snow. They are cleared regularly by the local councils. There's lots of car hire companies within Calgary itself. Now, in winter, the only way to get to Banff by train is on Via Rail's service. They offer a year-round. I'm sure everybody's heard of the Rocky Mountaineer, which is the summer train, hence the reason we're so full in the Rockies in summer. But they do not offer a winter service. The only winter service is the Via Rail train. It's known as the Canadian, and it travels from Vancouver up to Jasper National Park or vice versa, Jasper back to Vancouver. And then the transfer between Jasper and Banff is a shuttle that you can get for clients who like to travel to the park via train. The Rio Rail train you actually sleep on at night as well. It travels at night, wakes up in the morning, and you're in the heart of the Rockies. So then you can get a transfer with Sundog or Brewster directly down to Banff National Park for the train lovers out there. So just another snapshot on Banff itself. I'll do snapshots on both Banff and Lake Louise as they are two separate unique towns. Banff is more of a cosmopolitan town where all the shops are and the activities are located as their hub. This is where all the action takes place, and there's a lot more restaurant variety and accommodation variety. I've got the seasons there up there on the screen for you. And the thing about winter is it's actually the low season. So this is when your guests can stay in some of the premium properties for half of the price that they would pay in summer. If they could even get a room in summer, it is that popular. And within Banff Township itself, if you're not self-driving, there is Roam, which is the in-resort public transportation system, and that stops off at a lot of the lodging and at the key attractions like the Banff Gondola, or there's taxi services in and around town as well. Banff has two ski resorts very close to it as well, one being Mount Norquay, which is a local mountain that a lot of the ski teams practice at, quite a steep mountain, or Banff Sunshine, which is 25 minutes from Banff Township. Banff is not like a ski resort that's a purpose-built resort. It actually is a town, and that's what the point of difference is, what people like about coming to Banff National Park. It's a town experience. It's a mountain town. Now, if you don't drive, that's no problem. There's two organisations that have regular tours off to the activities, being Discover Banff Tours and Banff Adventures, and I'll touch on them when I get to the activities section. Lake Louise is a small little hamlet town. It's very quaint, and it's 45 minutes from the town of Banff along the Trans-Canada Highway, a cleared highway if you do choose to travel via vehicle, or there is shuttle transfers as well as the Roam transfer goes out to Lake Louise. If you did drive, a good tip is to drive along a road called the Bow Valley Parkway. It's not on the highway, but it's a wildlife corridor and a really nice slow drive to Lake Louise. It will probably take an hour because of the speed limit, but it's a beautiful, beautiful drive, the Bow Valley Parkway, and to suggest that to your guests. Lake Louise also has its own ski resort very close to it, only 5 minutes, called the Lake Louise Ski Resort, and it's famed for hosting the World Cup downhill races. People who go to Lake Louise, though, like the real wilderness of Banff National Park, and a lot of the accommodation is iconic there to enjoy the park. So you go to step into nature, and I'll touch on some of the accommodation later, but the most famed being the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise. That is your castle right on the edge of the lake. And then for those that like a bit more of a B&B style, there's Deer Lodge. Restaurants are limited in Lake Louise, and they are mainly within the accommodation themselves, but the accommodation standard of the restaurant is very, very high, especially at Fairmont, and Deer Lodge have their own restaurant where they have their own gaming, I should say, that they raise, and they grow a lot of their own vegetables, and it's all organic and natural in their restaurant, so it's quite famous in the area. And then there's the other restaurant in Lake Louise is quite famous. It's called the Station Restaurant. It's actually on board a steel train carriage at Lake Louise train station. It's beside it, and people actually dine on the steel train carriage. And as I mentioned too, within Lake Louise, there's activities. If you do not drive, Discover Banff Tours and Banff Adventures offer the activities and transfers, but they will predominantly offer them from Banff. So there's some activities that are from Lake Louise, others from Banff. But Lake Louise would be where you soak up the atmosphere to just have a pure wilderness stay. If you're going to split your clients between two, I would say 4 to 5 nights in Banff and then 3 to 4 in Lake Louise. An average stay would probably be 7 days in the park, though, as a 4 Banff, 3 Lake Louise. So I'll take you through some of the accommodation. I've just picked a few that I've highlighted that I know that Australians predominantly stay at, and I'll only touch on what I saw that was different about them when I visited recently to the park. The iconic being the Fairmont Banff Springs. I'd start with that, as everybody likes to tick it off their bucket list. And as mentioned, in winter, this property is half the price it would be in summer. So it's a great, if you can convince your clients to see the the beauty of winter of thousands of Christmas trees covered in snow and the snow falling down on this castle is an absolutely beautiful time to visit. And as I mentioned, great cost savings. And to the right there's a picture of the Willow Stream Spa. Within that spa, there's all heated thermal pools where guests can go and stay and enjoy the thermal pools, and they also go out into the pools. That Willow Stream Spa is quite famous to the area. They also have its own massaging spa as well, but if you did your clients would need to book in advance. I did find when I went there that there was not a lot of space available because people book weeks in advance for the spa treatments as such. The Fairmont Banff Springs also has amazing restaurants. I call this property a destination within itself. And if you travel at Christmas time, which I'll show you some images after, it is absolutely beautiful the way they decorate it. And the decoration start as early as November. A little bit of a different charm to your Fairmont properties is there's some wilderness cabins and lodges. High up on Tunnel Mountain in Banff National Park, not accessible via the coaches, this is more of a self-drive property, or you use public transport, the roam bus, is Buffalo Mountain Lodge. I touched on Deer Lodge being a great place in Lake Louise before. This is its sister property, so their restaurant is a standout and renowned to the locals as they grow a lot of their own and raise a lot of their own produce that they sell within the restaurant. And you can see it's more of a wilderness type stay. For people who like that, their fireplaces, the rustic charm. I apologise for my pictures on this one, they are a little bit fuzzy. But another property very similar to the Fairmont, it's a 4-diamond property, very high-end, is the Rimrock Resort in Banff. It's out of the township, high up on the hill, not within walking distance. Again, it would be something that transportation would be required, a self-drive or using the Roam Transit, because you can't walk to town from the Rimrock, but it's high up and in the mountain range and you look down over the town of Banff. It's quite spectacular. And rooms are very similar and the restaurant's very similar to the Fairmont. It just doesn't have that Willow Stream Spa. But Rimrock is another beautiful one that is up there in that higher end category. Right downtown in Banff, there's a lot of lodges and suites that Australians are liking to stay at because of the proximity to the restaurants. Fox Suites is one, and they're very comfortable, very standard of your twin or double beds. Some of them have kitchenettes, while others just have suites. They all have, to the right here, again a bit fuzzy, they have saunas and steam rooms, and they're all a bit unique in what they actually offer, and they have their own restaurants within them. They're like restaurant chains, so you'd see the Keg, you know, a similar chain to what we would have like Sizzler in Australia. They have a lot of those types of restaurants in these types of properties, but this is a very popular one close to downtown within walking distance. Buses stop out the front of this, or again, if you self-drive, should you need the car, there's parking. The Moose is right next door to the Fox. This is newly renovated. It's about 2 years now that this property has been fully renovated, and it's just a little bit more lighter in what they offer in decor, and they have a lot more kitchenette suites available as well. Right next door, again, very similar in restaurant style, your kind of chain type restaurant, but with very close walking distance to the main town. I put this property in, although it's a little bit further walk on the main street, Banff Avenue. It would be a 10-minute walk to town, but I was very impressed by its complete renovation. It's called the Canalta in Banff, and it is very modern, very contemporary, extremely spacious. So if you had larger groups or families going, this property, it could fit up to 15 people in one room just in standing comfortably, even though it might only sleep 4 to 5. So definitely look out for that one. It was formerly called the Spruce and has recently changed its name, but it's definitely one I would be recommending for groups or for people who just like a lot more modern decor. And it is not too far from town. You can still walk on a flat level 10 minutes into town. It's just not right in the heart, but definitely worth looking at. Beautiful restaurant and little cafe within the Canalta as well. I've included this resort here because Banff Township is not renowned for its ski-in, ski-out or on-mountain purpose-built accommodation. Banff is known as a ski town, but we do have one property up at a ski resort called Banff Sunshine, formerly called Sunshine Village, and it's called Sunshine Mountain Lodge, and it's very modern. I would say high-end in decor, but the pricing is very affordable, and it is a ski-in, ski-out property. But skiers don't, it's not just for skiers, because the Sunshine Gondola also takes people. It's a closed people mover gondola up into the high alpine. So if you did want someone who, a family who might have 1 or 2 skiers, but the rest not, and they just wanted to enjoy the snow and facilities, do look at this property. It's, you have to get up there by gondola, as mentioned, and you would use the ski transfer bus, shuttle bus, which I'll touch on when I get to ski section to get there. A little tip with this property as well. While I say that summer is extremely busy in Banff and it is very difficult to get rooms, this property you might have more luck because it is high in the alpine, and if you have clients who hike or like wildflowers, the Sunshine Mountain Lodge, you could actually potentially get a room. Maybe not in the peak of summer, but on the edges of summer. This is just one property that they do tell me that you might be in luck to get a room. Usually you can't in Banff because it just gets sold out in summer. But yeah, a great property for ski in, ski out, or families who only have one person that ski and the others want to just sit and watch them out the mountain. A really nice modern property. Great restaurants up at the mountain as well. And at night they have fun activities from tubing to toasting marshmallows, bands out and or music out onto the snow. So a good one to look for. Moving over to Lake Louise, this is the iconic, the most sold property in the area. It's the famous Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise, sister property to the Fairmont Banff Springs. Now, unlike the Fairmont Banff Springs, it doesn't have a big Willow Stream spa, but it does have its own nice spa that is there in smaller pool area. But what people come for here is that view of the lake. So you can see on one image the lake frozen in front of it, and the other, the lines down, the streaks down the mountain, that is Lake Louise Ski Resort. So it is only 5 minutes from the hotel. And a lot of skiers who do go to Banff National Park like the proximity because you don't have to get the shuttle far, and Fairmont have their own shuttle to and from Lake Louise, which is only 5 minutes. And you can also ice skate on the lake in front of them, and the Fairmont offers rentals there. A beautiful property with views of either the lake or the mountains. Close to Lake Louise on that road that I mentioned that connects between Banff and Lake Louise, called the Bow Valley Parkway. This would be a self-drive property only because Rome doesn't go there, but it is your perfect little Canadian log cabin. It's absolutely beautiful. They have a gorgeous restaurant. I did stay there myself, and it felt like Yogi Bear, like National Park itself. It was just beautiful. So this is a gorgeous little property on the Bow Valley Parkway called Baker Creek Mountain Resort. If you have a self-drive client who is happy to drive along that Bow Valley Parkway and looking for wilderness, this is a really nice property. It's also closer to the Lake Louise side than what it is to Banff. So it really, you would need to get your supplies. They have kitchenettes. Get your supplies from Banff and bring them in here, and this is where you would enjoy your wilderness stay. They have all different types of cabin sizes as well. In Lake Louise is Deer Lodge. This property here is more of a B&B. If you've got clients that who are really into socialising and the community atmosphere, in a way almost like a Club Med, because it's almost forced social interaction, like all the tea and the coffees or the drinks. They're all in like a common room. A lot of people like going there. A lot of Europeans prefer this sort of a property because the rooms are a lot smaller, so people don't really stay in their rooms in this property. I see this property more as a B&B type style property, but the restaurant is also linked with that Buffalo Mountain Lodge, where they have produced their own game and grow a lot of their own vegetables. So it's highly regarded and sought after. A lot of people book to go to that restaurant. And one of the most famous hot tubs in the Canadian Rockies, it's the picture of the hot tub on the roof there that overlooks the mountains. This property here I visited recently has been completely renovated. I only had one picture of the rooms, but there are rooms that are very spacious. Some even have the little kitchenettes in them. Now, it doesn't have lifts up and down, so if you have clients that require lifts, it's not suitable. You do have to go up and down the stairs. But it is in Lake Louise, very, very close to the township. It's actually across the road from the little small town that there is. And I found their rooms very, very spacious. They're modern rooms, especially for families, and I believe their lead-in rates are very reasonable. This is another property I put in there because the variety in Lake Louise is limited, so it's good that you can see a cross-section of what there is. This would be a good lead-in property. Now moving on to some winter activities, things that you can actually do in Banff and Lake Louise when you're visiting in winter. I'll touch on a few activities and how they're offered. Starting with dog sledding, everybody loves to do dog sledding. I will be honest with you though, it is very difficult to book. So it's one of those activities that I would recommend that you get, make your commissions on getting your accommodation and your transfers and a few other signature experiences, and let your guests book the dog sledding themselves, because a lot of the time it's sold out and avoids disappointment. It is available though, and these 3 companies here are the 3 within Banff Lake Louise Tourism membership that actually operate. King Mick is at Lake Louise, right near the chateau, and Snowy Owl and Howling Dog are in Canmore, and they operate on Spray Lakes. So the other thing with dog sledding too, while these 2 here in the screen look like huskies, the majority of them look like greyhounds. So tell your guests too that if they're expecting to see like the beautiful husky dog, majority of them are Alaskan huskies. An Alaskan husky looks more like a greyhound cross Kelpie because of they're built for their endurance and speed. Sometimes we hear feedback that some people will say they're not as cute and fluffy as we'd hoped, but that is why the pure Alaskan husky actually doesn't look like this. If you want this look though, the best operator for that is Snowy Owl. Majority of theirs are the Siberian husky. The horse sleigh rides are an activity that you can sell, and a lot of all the wholesalers in Australia sell them, and they're booked through these companies here that on the screen: Banff Adventures, Banff Trail Riders, Brewster Adventures, Discover Banff Tours. The good thing about this experience too is majority of those companies, if you've got a client that doesn't drive, will pick you up from certain places and drop you off. This is a signature experience that you really want to try within the park. Snowshoeing is another fun one. Again, there's operators that offer pick-up and drop-off from hotels to take you on different snowshoeing. The options are really endless. You can go up to one of the resorts and snowshoe in the high alpine, or you can snowshoe on some of the frozen lakes. And snowshoeing is very easy. It's like having tennis rackets on your feet, and it's a really easy way and fun way to walk in the snow. Ice skating is quite common in the area. You'll see a lot of locals out on local rinks, as even Banff High School downtown has a little rink. And you can hire skates in Banff, along Banff Avenue in some of the shops, and also to the Fairmont's rent out skates, particularly the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise. There's a lot of people like to skate on that lake. You can get ice skates there. Quite signature to the area is a canyon called Johnson Canyon. It's a beautiful canyon that has waterfalls in summer, and the waterfalls freeze over in winter. And again, if you don't drive, that's no problem. Discover Banff Tours and Banff Adventure Centre have connections from Banff Township straight to the canyon, and they provide cleats to go on your feet and a guide and hot chocolate at the end. This is a really easy canyon to walk through because it's a boardwalk. So it's all level, a few ups and downs, but nothing steep. So all abilities could walk this, and it really is the most magnificent experience you could do within the park. It's simply beautiful. Scenic helicopter flights are very popular within Banff National Park as well. They take off from the town of Canmore or also just north of the park and at the Icefield base. These are the 2 operators, Alpine Heli and Rocky's Heli, that operate the heli scheme. And a new phenomenon that they're trying that is just different now is you see in the picture here these bubbles that look like they're under a frozen lake. Well, they're called ice bubbles, and what the ice bubbles are is methane gases that freeze under the lake, but it looks a bit like a tropical reef underneath. So people are coming to see them as a natural wonder, just like they would see the Northern Lights because they're so beautiful. So Alpine Helicopters particularly is taking groups out to see those. And basically you can walk out and see all the bubbles and take photos. There's also gondolas. Banff Gondola is the most signature gondola in Banff Township. That's what a lot of people will go up and spend the day at. It's newly renovated, beautiful restaurants up there, an interpretive centre up there, and further boardwalks you can see here on the right taken. You can also go up to one of the ski resort gondolas at Sunshine Village. That's where that Banff Mountain Lodge was that I mentioned, and it's a complete closed gondola. If you wanted to be surrounded by the Rockies very close, that's another gondola your guests can go up in winter. Even if they're not skiers, they can go up to that gondola. But the Banff gondola would be one of the most popular that you would sell from the Australian market. I mentioned before the guided tours because Australians still are hesitant to drive, so the airport transports and guided tours are a lot of interest to the Australian. And the three most common tours that the Australian likes to book is one called Banff and its Wildlife, which is an interpretive tour of the township of Banff. And then the wildlife component is they tell you about the wildlife in the park, where they live, how they survive, what is done to protect them, what animals are out in winter versus summer. And in winter, you'll most commonly see bighorn sheep and elk. And if you're lucky, you could see a moose or a wolf, but they are a lot more scarce. And you will not see a bear because they're in hibernation. And then these two guides also offer a Lake Louise sightseeing day, where, again, from Banff, they can take you into Lake Louise. There may be options too where if you stay, they can pick you up on the way back, because this just takes you to the lake to see around, especially if guests who decide to only stay in Banff and not see Lake Louise. Everybody does want to tick that Lake Louise off their bucket list, so there is a sightseeing tour there. And the Johnson Canyon Boardwalk, I mentioned that. They're the three signature guided tours that these operators offer, and that are definitely sold through tour operators within Australia. But I would still recommend to your guests to do 4 nights at least in Banff and up to 3 in Lake Louise, letting them know that Lake Louise is more your wilderness, where you just go and stop and enjoy the surroundings, and Banff being a lot more about the activity. For skiers and snowboarders, the Banff National Park has 3 iconic ski resorts, Mount Norquay, Sunshine Village and Lake Louise. What's unique about them is that they're not purpose-built resorts. They are up high in the Alpine, and they have you have the option to ski anywhere on this tri-area lift pass that is sold. And the mountains combined call themselves Ski Big 3. So if you hear the term in Australia of Ski Big 3, that means Ski Banff National Park. And with the tri-area, you have transportation included. I've got the times there on how it takes. This transportation picks up from many properties on Banff Avenue and rotates all day between these ski resorts. And there's a lot of rental options also at the ski resorts and in downtown Banff as well. Some of the ski resorts have unique activities as well, like Lake Louise has a torchlight ski dinner, so you have a dinner and dance up on the mountain, and then they put a torchlight on your head to ski down. Most resorts offer tubing and snowshoeing as well, and they have beautiful day lodges where you can have lunch, all types of Rocky Mountain cuisine. So the point of difference between skiing and Banff National Park is that if you've got a member of the family who doesn't want to ski 9 to 5, there's just so much else that they could do while another member went skiing. Or for those that like big alpine mountains and are hardcore skiers, these mountains certainly do deliver. Christmas is the most beautiful time to visit Banff and Lake Louise, but it's the time where I would be saying to your clients to start looking now, as it is busy just like summer. Everybody wants to have a white Christmas. I would recommend the Fairmonts. They put on an amazing display of the Christmas trees in every room, gingerbread making, the chefs cook special meals, just absolutely beautiful. And they start the decorations from as early as November. Then some of the other properties, like I mentioned before, Baker Creek, if you have a self-drive property, they also do Christmas trees in the room and do special things out in the snow as well. If you had a client looking for more of that rustic log cabin in the snow, both of them do. But the Christmas experience in the Rockies certainly is a white and beautiful one to remember. Some of these Christmas activities have festivals around them too. If you did have clients who wanted to go early in November and then be back in Australia for Christmas, in November there is the Santa Parade and there's the Banff Christmas markets as well in November. Now, I'll be honest that these are very short events, so you would have to keep an eye on the website for when they list them for 2018, because they're still working on that now. But like the Banff Christmas markets would probably be similar to the weekend that it was this year, and it only runs for 4 days. But it's a very unique, cute little Christmas market that has lots of gifts, and a lot of the locals really put pride in bringing their stuff that they make or produce or sow or build to this market, and it's growing in popularity every year. Also in January is a very popular event called Ice Magic, and that's at Lake Louise, on Lake Louise, and if you stay at the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise or D Lodge, I believe you get free entry because it does cost tickets to do it, but it's the best ice carvers across North America that come and carve magnificent ice sculptures. It's just absolutely beautiful, and January is when this takes place, another great time to visit and experience the park. I've included dining and nightlife here. I've touched on it a little bit that a lot of the resorts themselves have great dining facilities. The fine dining would be more at your Fairmonts, whereas the other properties, it is more your chain type food. So I'd recommend going out to some of the restaurants if you're not at the higher end properties, because a lot of the chain food is that fast food, like say the Fox or the Moose. Downtown, they will have more of your chain type food, your burgers and your chips or pasta. But if you wanted a bit more variety in your cuisine, go out into the township of Banff, where there is a wide variety of restaurants, cafes, bars, and you can experience some really nice Rocky Mountain cuisine. But if you were staying at like a Fairmont or a Rimrock, their restaurants are just as beautiful. Within Lake Louise, as I mentioned, it is quite limited to the properties other than the station. So if you really want to get out and enjoy the cuisine or the nightlife, Banff is the place to do it. And the restaurants are listed all on the Banff website as well. Shopping is also the place you would do that in Banff. Everything from mountain claws and chocolate shops. There's bear claws there, sorry, with the nuts on the ends and their chocolate, beautiful bear claw candy shops. My favourite shop being the Christmas shop. Every Christmas ornament you can imagine is in there. So this is where I would tell your guests to go shopping in Banff. There's also no provincial tax in Banff. So if they're visiting British Columbia and Alberta, make sure that they do a lot of their shopping from a souvenir perspective in Banff, because you don't pay provincial tax and extra tax that you would have to pay should you shop in another province in Canada. That's a nice little tip there. Now, I'm asked all the time, what sort of wildlife will I see within the park? The wildlife really only come out in the morning and the evening. They stay away from people. They are frightened of people, but it is more off the beaten track. So even when you do the Discover Banff and its wildlife, you probably will see elk high on Tunnel Mountain, sitting down, depending on what time of day you do the tour. But the best way to see wildlife would be more your self-drive and going out to some of the lookout places at dawn and dusk and along the Bow Valley Parkway. You can see fox, bighorn sheep, moose, elk, wolves, but the most common would be the elk, as I mentioned. But if you are going specifically to see the wildlife, do know that it is scarce even in summer. It's really about being out when they're grazing, which is morning and night. And I will say I do believe that it is the self-drivers that will have more chance of seeing the wildlife, because they've got flexibility to be able to go out at dawn and dusk to some of these quieter spots, and that's when they'll be out and about. So that sums up my presentation, and I'm open to any questions if anybody's got any, and I hope you can all see how beautiful Banff National Park is in winter, and you come visit us soon. Thank you.
Lizzie, thank you so much. Such a great update, covering everything from accommodation to activities to food, which we all love. So thank you very much.
Lunchtime, we're all hungry.
Yeah, getting hungry. So the floor is open for questions. If anybody does have any questions, please type them into the chat box. Of course, Lizzie knows that presentations brings back some great memories for me. I've been to Banff Lake Louise a few times. Such a wonderful destination. And if you have been in the summer, I do recommend that, or if your clients have been in the summer, I recommend that they go again in the winter. It is completely different. All covered in white. It's absolutely stunning. So definitely send them back. All right, let's have a look.
Yes, it's postcard perfect.
It is postcard perfect. Lots of thank yous coming in.
I think I just had is there New Year's Eve celebration? Yes, there certainly is in downtown. They sometimes even let off fireworks on New Year's Eve, and Banff would be the place to be for any celebration or activity versus Lake Louise. And a lot of the properties, the bigger the property, that they'll actually put on activities themselves as well, so your Fairmonts will. But some of the really happening places like Wild Bill's downtown, they'll have celebrations, tastings, events, and as I mentioned, sometimes there's fireworks depending on what parks will allow at the time. It's certainly interesting. The park can be restricted by being in a national park, even when it comes to lights. There's certain lights that the Parks Canada will or won't allow within Banff, but you certainly will be guaranteed a celebration by going on New Year's, definitely.
Kylie also says, will this presentation be emailed to participants to use with other staff? Yes, Kylie. One of the things that came out in our survey was that I'll be requesting that the presenters send PDF copies out in the follow-ups. Of course, we will be sending out some follow-up information. So yeah, I'll ask Lizzie to PDF the presentation and include that.
I'll probably have to put it as a Dropbox file. It's quite a large file, or Hightail.
If we PDF it, it normally shrinks it quite a bit.
So
we can figure out
Happy to. Yes.
Cool. So yeah, lots of Jan, thanks Lizzie, lovely presentation. Lily, thanks Lizzie, lots of great info, great update, thanks. Cool, lots of thank yous. Thank you, ladies. All right, we will sign off there. If anybody wants to hang back, please do, if you've got any other questions. Otherwise, I hope to see you next time.
Yes, thank you, everybody.